Tonight, nearly 2,000 vacant healthcare positions in the province, and those numbers don't even tell the full story.
While a lot of us were holding fast, a lot of public healthcare workers were letting go of public healthcare jobs.
We've known for a long time recruitment's not the issue, it's retention. And this shouts and speaks volumes to that very issue.
5 people face serious drug-related charges after police seize over $1 million worth of cocaine. More details on this significant case with its connections to the Corner Brook area. That's tonight on Here and Now.
The 2024 Men's Senior Curling Championships are on the go in St. John's this week, and the winner of this event gets to go to the Briar.
I would love to win this event. Maybe surprise a few teams.
Certainly been a renewed interest since Bragg has qualified for the Briar.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll have that story coming up.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. The NDP says the province's healthcare crisis is deeper than the Liberal government has let on. Government says shortages are plaguing healthcare systems worldwide, but there is some good news in Newfoundland and Labrador. Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports.
These are shocking numbers.
Kim Churchill asked for a list of all the doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and medical technicians who left NL Health Services in the past 2 years, and a list of all the vacancies in all medical job titles at the Health Authority in the same period.
Across all 4 health zones, there are a total of 1,905 vacancies in the public healthcare system. Some of these positions have been vacant for up to 154 weeks. That's 3 years where the government has been unable to fill these positions.
That number doesn't include doctors with private practices, like family doctors who have offices and bill MCP, but the NDP did find that the Health Authority lost many doctors.
In the last 2 years, 115 doctors have left positions with NL healthcare system.
The NDP's provincial leader is calling on the province to do more to retain healthcare professionals.
Focus on the retention of public healthcare workers. Commit to phase out costly travel nurses. Set a date. Pay workers competitively. Treat them with respect by listening to them. Listen to the frontline workers about the needs for work-life balance.
The NDP says the problem is retention. It says the province is losing many more workers than it's attracting. Osborne says that was the case.
We were losing more people than we were bringing in. There's no question.
But now he says the tide is beginning to turn.
Our 4th radiation unit is now open. We are working to repatriate patients who we've sent away for radiation treatment back to Newfoundland and Labrador, but that unit is now open, and it's open because of recruitment, by the way.
Still, the province has a long way to go to fill more than 1,900 vacancies, at a time when tension is building with hundreds of health workers who've broken off talks for a new contract. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the Provincial Health Authority has told paramedics and ambulance drivers that they can no longer use the term red alert. That was the term for situations when there's no ambulance available to respond to a 911 call, but NAPE says the Health Authority has told them not to use red alert over the radios anymore. The union says many frontline workers feel the move is because of optics and the change doesn't address the real problem.
You have to deal with the issue, irregardless. We would love not to use the term, never have to use the term. But if you're not addressing the problems because you feel now people are not paying attention to it, that will never get the issues resolved. We know the response times are not sufficient in areas of the province, and some parts of the province much worse than others. And right here in the largest, densely populated area in Metro, red alerts still exist. While I may say not on a daily basis, they are quite frequent and they are of significant duration.
Well, police in Deer Lake are investigating the death of a man who fell off his snowmobile yesterday. The RCMP say they responded to a call about a rider who fell off his machine, and the man was taken to hospital where he died. The chief medical examiner's office is involved in that investigation. And a group tied to a significant cocaine trafficking investigation, one that had police searching homes right across the island, appeared in a Corner Brook courtroom today. Police say the group is connected to a seizure of cocaine worth more than $1 million. Here Now's Colleen Connors has more.
4 of the 5 involved connected by phone to a Corner Brook courtroom this morning. 3 men, 1 woman. Stephen Kelly, Kathleen Pelly, Sean Gibbons, and Patrick Hickey. They range from 25 to 51 years old, with connections to the Corner Brook area. All face charges of trafficking or possessing cocaine. Kelly faces the most charges, stemming from an investigation that dates back to 2021.
I would say that, without knowing specifically, I would say the investigation perhaps had some initial targets, as of February of 2021 when the investigation initiated. Some people may have came, into our radar, as you would say, later in the investigation.
Police call it Project Bustle. Arrests were first made in December of 2022, searching homes in St. John's, Gander, Appleton, and the Humber Valley Resort. That found 8 kilograms of cocaine and more than $173,000 in cash.
That seizure of cocaine, 8 kilograms, which was quite large indeed, we do suspect that would have been further processed and cut down, to make more product before it actually hits the streets. So if we're looking at a very conservative street value for this product was, in excess of $1 million.
Garland says the RCMP Federal Serious and Organized Crime Unit is involved here. Kelly and another person involved, Clifford Mugford, have a court date in St. John's later this month, related to the same drug investigation. All will be in court later this winter for another appearance. The investigation into this significant drug trafficking case continues. Garland says that there may be more charges coming early this year, and more people may be involved. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, government has already suspended the license for the province's first ride-sharing service, a license that was issued just days ago. According to a statement from Service NL, Red Sea riding is suspended until further notice. This after new information was brought to the department's attention that ride-sharing service was expected to become available on the Avalon in the coming months. CBC News has confirmed through court documents that someone with the same name as the owner of Red Sea Riding is accused of a number of charges, including sexual assault, sexual interference, and unlawfully making sexually explicit material available to a child. That individual has pleaded not guilty. CBC, however, has not been able to reach the company for comment. Now, PC critic Jody Wall calls the situation outrageous, saying in part today the ride-sharing industry has not even arrived yet and we have controversy. These are the very concerns we raised when the legislation went through the House of Assembly. Can anyone get a ride-sharing license? How about the drivers? The minister needs to explain this latest fiasco. Well, meanwhile, there's another company on the Avalon hoping to hit the gas next month. Cabby is a ride-sharing app created by a few friends who studied and worked together at Memorial University. They saw a need for an app that tracks a driver's location in real time.
You download the app from the App Store, you put in your number, you verify your number, you go in, add your payment method, and then book a ride wherever you want to go, and then the driver will come up right at your doorstep.
Competition is a good thing. There's a lot we can learn from other sources, from our competitors, from the cab companies, and apply to our own services to provide the best service for Newfoundlands. At the end of the day, we want to be the best, and we intend to be the best, and competition is wonderful.
And they're not afraid of a little competition. Cabby tells us there are still a few hurdles to overcome. Our conversation continues in 25 minutes on Here and Now. Well, the government is opening some emergency warming shelters ahead of some frigid winter weather expected tonight and tomorrow. Strong winds could make it feel like -30 on some parts of the island overnight and -35 on the northern peninsula. And that has led to concern about those people who don't have shelter or those who can't afford to heat their homes. The province is opening the Safe Haven shelter on St. Clair Avenue in St. John's as a warming center. And the people who run the city's busiest shelter expect another full house tonight. Kim Grant at the Gathering Place says they've been working to help prepare people for the cold.
Making sure that they have a plan in place, that if they are unhoused, that we'll work with them to connect them with the emergency shelter line so that there is a plan for them tonight and into tomorrow. We might make sure that people have the supplies in their home that they might need, that they have the warm clothing available. And it's not just people who are unsheltered, it may also be people who are housed, but because of the cost of living and are trying to keep their costs down, they may be in a cold house, so they might come here just to warm up.
Newfoundland and Labrador Housing does have an emergency shelter line to help those who have nowhere to go. If you're looking to get out of the cold, you can call 1-833-724-2444.
Good evening, Heather here for Ashley. And cold, cold, cold is the story over the next 24 hours. Let's take a look at the weather that is on the way. Cold warning. We have a cold warning. Extreme cold temperatures through parts of Labrador. That has expanded to the northern peninsula with temperatures expected to get near -35 there tonight. With the weather, we'll see some clouds and flurries across the province tonight, tomorrow. The sunshine will make an appearance, but it will still be absolutely frigid, warming up to the minus teens with the wind chill tomorrow afternoon. And I say warming up, and this is where we have the extreme cold warnings through Lab West, Churchill Falls, Nain, and for the northern peninsula. Taking a look at our future tracker now, we see some clouds across much of Labrador, still some flurries through west and southwest coast and up into the northern peninsula. It made for some bad driving today and some flurries across parts of the Avalon as well today. We saw a few flakes pretty well all across the province. That looks like it'll clear out as we head towards tomorrow. We'll break down all the cold coming up a little later on Here and Now.
Thanks, Heather. Well, people in the New West Valley and Greens Pond areas are remembering Derek Bragg. The cabinet minister and MHA died this week, just 7 months after announcing he'd been diagnosed with tongue cancer. In his home region, people remember Bragg as a fun-loving man with a huge personality who was devoted to his family.
When did you first meet Derek Bragg?
I guess it was probably through our roles with the fire department. Derek was chief of Greens Pond. I was a firefighter here, and when we have joint meetings or go to certain events, Derek would be there. Also, I had the opportunity to coach his daughter in high school basketball and his future son-in-law. So Derek would be at the auditorium, you know, you'd chat. I knew Derek's wife through my previous role as a paramedic at the hospital, and Beverly was a nurse. So of course, you know, interacted with Bev on a semi-daily basis and got to know her and you know, hearing stories and stuff about Derek through her. So yeah, I've known Derek for quite a many years. He had a huge personality. Derek, when he came into a room, is like he owned the room. You know, he was a ball of laughs. He was a very easy to get to know. You know, you meet Derek and in the first 5 minutes, you kind of knew that you were going to like Derek. Fun-loving, like to poke jokes and tell stories, and truly a good man to be around. He was such a strong family person. Derek was a devoted husband and an extremely devoted father. If his daughter wanted to go to the moon, he would do whatever he could to make it happen. He was a very, very strong family person. And for those that only knew Derek through municipal or provincial politics or whatever, that I think is above all what Derek Bragg was a strong family man.
He was a regular guy. He'll certainly be missed, because I think that a lot of the things that's been done in this area is through Derek. It may not have been done by other politicians. We've had good politicians, and most of them have been fairly good. And we have always got our share. And I think in Derek's case, he's done probably more than his share.
I knew Derek all his lifetime, right? So, I mean, there's probably a guy on the road in a stroller or something the first time I saw him, right? And I've known him ever since, right? And followed Derek's career right up through, all through Greenspan and what he did with municipal affairs and that way. And always proud whenever Derek had an accomplishment, and that usually was all the time he did anything, he accomplished what he was doing, right? We're all feeling the sadness of losing Derek, right? But that's the way things are, I suppose, you know, right? But I mean, it's pretty incredible that a small town boy, I suppose, can have the flags lowered half-mast on all provincial and federal buildings in Newfoundland. So he left his mark somewhere on somebody, right? You know, that's usually set aside for, well, maybe I was going to say higher dignitaries, but you can't get much higher than what Derek was.
Now to some sports news. Big pressure for the winners of this year's men's senior curling championship that's underway in St. John's this week. The winners are going to the Briar. But as Jeremy Eaton tells us, it's anybody's game.
With Team Gushu having won the Briar last year, they return in 2024 as Team Canada. So that means somebody else has to represent Newfoundland and Labrador. And that's exactly what they're trying to figure out here this week. And there is no front runner this year. A number of teams could take home the tankard. Now, if this is something that you didn't know, let me tell you.
This is the playdowns to go to the Scotties and the Briar. Scotties is in 3 weeks and the Briar is in 5.5 weeks. We have 4 women's. They'll play a double round robin, and then depending on the standings, there could be a couple of different playoff formats. We have 9 men's teams. They'll play down to a semi-final and a final.
It's a long ways to go, but it's great to come for competitive curling. My teams over the years have changed a little bit. We currently have 2 guys who are in Port aux Basques, one who recently moved from Corner Brook, and we have one from Lab City. The competition is great. We love competing against the best teams in the province, teams who've been to the Tankard and Briar many times. But it's great to see all the guys that we play against every year and have the social aspect of it too.
Nathan has been able to rise to the occasion the last couple of years. I'd probably make him a slight favorite over perhaps 3 other teams. And then any one of the other teams has beaten all those guys at the top in this event the last couple of years.
Played the Rick Rousel Classic earlier in the season, got a taste for the competitive side, and the team that's there now, their skip couldn't make it for this event, and they asked me to play, and I was, yeah, that's a good idea. A bunch of young fellows make me look good.
How much notice did you get for this?
Probably about a month. There's no expectations on us this week. We're just in it for some fun and maybe surprise a few teams, and it's always good to get a competitive side of curling in. Absolutely.
Back in 15-16, we had 6 teams. I think Brad hadn't lost a game in a number of years here, and people just, I guess, didn't even want to take a week off work to play against him. The first year Brad didn't play, we had 10 teams here, and we've had 8 to 9 teams ever since. So it's certainly been a renewed interest since Brad has qualified for the Briar every year.
Some high winds and cold temperatures coming for the metro region. We're looking at a wind chill of about -29 overnight tonight. And this is all coming at a time when more and more people are struggling to find shelter. Coming up, we'll check in with the Gathering Place to find out how they plan to help keep people warm.
Keeping warm will be difficult in parts of the province tonight. Look at this, already into the -30s across Labrador and down into the double digits in some parts of the island. Look at this. Cooler temperatures are going to come our way. We'll break all of that down in just a little bit.
Well, some bitterly cold temperatures coming for much of the Avalon. We're looking at some high winds and a wind chill of around -29 overnight tonight. And this is all coming at a time when people are struggling to find housing, especially in the St. John's area. So joining me now is Kim Grant with The Gathering Place. So Kim, when you hear about this forecast and just how cold it's going to get, what concerns you about the folks who are out there who just have no place to stay?
Yeah, it's very concerning when we're talking about temperatures that extreme for people who are unsheltered and, you know, vulnerable to health conditions such as frostbite. So we try to open our warming center as an option for people to be able to come in out of the cold and warm up in our space. And while they're with us, they would have access to all of our services, whether it's a hot shower or laundry services. They can access our boutique for some warm clothing. We have a good supply of those heat pads for hands and feet. We could always use more, so a little plug for donations of warm clothing, particularly winter mitts and hats. And then, of course, the hot meal is available to them as well.
Do you expect to have a full house in there tonight in the shelter?
Well, if the last couple of weeks have been any indication, yes, we're seeing more people migrating indoors during the day because the weather is colder. Our shelter has been at capacity for many months now, so we certainly expect to be full tonight. We do work with our community partners and with Newfoundland and Labrador Housing around coming up with a plan for people who are unhoused so that they do have an option to get out of the cold. There are designated warming centers available where people can go. And if need be, we always have the option to increase our capacity by putting out some extra beds. So we don't want to see anybody out in the cold.
And we're hearing that the City of St. John's isn't designating any specific warming centers for tonight or tomorrow. Does that put more pressure on the Gathering Place?
Well, to date, we've been able to manage. This isn't our first time experiencing extreme cold or storm conditions, so we always will put our extreme weather protocol in place. So that might mean that we're extending our hours of operation where people can come in, or we're changing some of our processes so people are not waiting outside to come in. So we haven't seen a significant demand in the past, so we don't expect to see that this time either. And again, through some of the work we're doing with community partners, we think that the capacity may very well be there.
And you know, you do offer a slew of services there. You just mentioned that you do extend your hours. Is there anything else that you do in these sort of instances when the temperatures are just getting especially cold to enhance what you offer?
Yeah, some of the work that we might be doing today, for example, is preparing people for this weather, making sure that they have a plan in place, that if they are unhoused, that we'll work with them to connect them with the emergency shelter line so that there is a plan for them tonight and into tomorrow. We might make sure that people have the supplies in their home that they might need, that they have the warm clothing available. And it's not just people who are unsheltered. It may also be people who are housed, but because of the cost of living and are trying to keep their costs down, they may be in a cold house, so they might come here just to warm up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And what are you hearing from people today who are at the Gathering Place? Are you hearing any concerns from people about this cold weather that's coming?
Not so much. I think, you know, people are prepared to weather through, and again, they know that the services are there. We also will make sure they're aware of not only our services, but other services that are available in the community.
Well, Kim Grant, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for this.
My pleasure. Thanks, Carolyn.
And Heather, we mentioned this earlier, but worth mentioning again that the provincial government is opening the Safe Haven shelter on St. Clair Avenue in St. John's as a warming shelter as well. So that's another option for people there. And, you know, talked about the cold temperatures in St. John's, -29 wind chill overnight, but Labrador, my goodness, it's cold there.
It is. It's already into the almost -30 here in Lab West and Churchill Falls. And into the mid -20s for Happy Valley Goose Bay and parts of the coast. Factoring in the wind chill, it is even colder. All of this Arctic air going to make its way our way into the overnight. Already seeing -19 in St. Anthony and 13 here in Lassie, into the minus double digits for many parts of the west coast and in through central. Not too bad here on the east coast right now, but it's coming our way. Let's break down a little bit more of this. You see the 24-hour temperature change as much as 17 degrees colder in Lab West today and through central Labrador as well. 5 to 7 degrees for parts of the island, a bit warmer here on the Avalon, bucking that trend. But as we go into tonight, we'll see those temperatures remain in Labrador into the -20s. Colder, of course, with the wind chill. We will take a detailed look at that in just a moment. But for the island, pretty well into the mid-teens for the most part, but into the -20s for St. Anthony. And what we'll see tonight is some clouds, some flurries possible, but also some clearing. And up across Labrador, we will see some clouds and some clear skies there as well. Going to be a pretty windy night in many places, especially on the island and for coastal Labrador, with gusts up to 70 and possibly 80 in Nain tonight. Taking a look at all of these wind chill temperatures now this evening, -46 in Lab West and nearing -40 in Happy Valley Goose Bay, -40 for sure on the coast of Labrador in many places. And look at this, St. Anthony dropping down to -29 here in the wind chill. We've got a cold warning for there as well, where it could get as cold as -35 with the wind chill. But as we head towards the early morning hours, we're going to see those wind chill values really drop back, especially for the island, -36 in St. Anthony and -30 in Daniels Harbour, and into the mid-20s, nearing -30 for many places. And look at that -29 here for St. John's and -26 along southern parts of the island. As we move into tomorrow afternoon, it's going to warm up a little bit into the almost -30s for coastal Labrador and Labrador, and into the mid-teens for many places in the island, -20-ish with the wind chill in the interior of the island. Taking a look at our future tracker now, as we move towards midnight tonight, we'll see some clearing skies and some cloud moving across Labrador. We will continue to see some possible flurries for the southwest and west coast and into the northern peninsula, and a little clear patch here through the central, but some flurries right here across Twillingate to Bonavista, even clipping the St. John's area here as well in the northeast Avalon. Seeing some clearing trends as we go into tomorrow morning as well. So as we move on from this, we're talking about the winds as well. It's top wind gusts today in Nain, 98 and 70 along parts of the Labrador coast, and 80 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, 70 and 80 here for the west coast as well. So the winds are going to pick up, be 50, 60, 80 for parts of Labrador tonight. So that's going to factor into your wind chill. Taking a look for the future tracker tomorrow, we're going to see some sun and cloud pretty well for the province, with some cloud moving on. And as we get to tomorrow, we'll see between -8, -9 for St. John's and the Avalon, with your wind chill warming up to the -teens. As we head through tomorrow, your temperatures into the -double digits through central, warming up to the -teens in the afternoon for Corner Brook, and for the west coast, we'll see some flurries possible, things warming up again for you. For Bayvert, warming up to the -20s. Imagine that. And for the northern peninsula, things will warm up into the -20s for you guys in the afternoon, and for southern Labrador, warming to near -30. As we move into Labrador, temperatures down into the -teens, much colder in the morning when you wake up, -35 to -40 with the wind chill, into the -25 range tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon as things warm up for you folks, with some sun and cloud in your forecast. We'll talk about the long range coming up.
After 2 years of adversity and heartbreak, and a Herculean effort to get her in the water, the Petton's legacy was finally launched this week in Harbour Grace, and she's a floating tribute to the late Dwight Petton.
Dad seen it about halfway through. Took ill with cancer.
All I can think of is how Dad would have felt here today, and how proud he would have been, not only of the boat, but of his son.
She's an absolute beaut. She's a beautiful boat. It's one of the largest fishing vessels I think that I've ever completed.
The Petton's legacy is likely the most expensive and largest fishing vessel ever built in this province for the inshore sector. I'm Terry Roberts, and I'll have that story tomorrow on Here and Now.
Well, as we reported earlier, government has suspended the license for what would have been the province's first ride-sharing service, but there's another company hoping to hit the road as soon as next month. It's a ride-sharing app called Cabby, and the men behind it say there's already a big demand for the service that hasn't even launched yet. I spoke with them about the business and some of the hurdles they've hit along the way.
It came about like a few years ago when me and my friend Frank was talking about there's no app for cabs, there's limitation, Uber's not here and everything, right? So we started chatting about it. We were thinking, okay, how can we improve the system over here? And that's literally how the idea came to be.
I started off with our third co-founder, Frank. He had this idea of why don't we have a service in Newfoundland, an app where you can see the cabs arriving in real time and pay with it, similar to what you do with other rideshare companies. And he designed this application, spoke with Harris about it, and then they spoke to me about it, and then we decided let's do this.
What was the process like getting this app going? You still have some steps to go, but
Yeah.
but it's coming along.
Absolutely. We spent about a year building the application. It's been a very challenging process, dealing with regulations and pivoting the idea as we face different challenges. We started off trying to build it for cab companies, and then the government changed some of the rules to allow for ride sharing to operate in Canada, and we pivoted towards that idea. So there have been a lot of pivots and a lot of challenges throughout the process. We've just learned from it and tried to take each step at a time.
In terms of the app, we are completely ready to launch. The only thing that we are waiting for is the insurance. Once we have the insurance set up, we'll be ready to go.
And what kind of insurance do you need to get? What's that process like?
So there are a few brokers in town that we're talking with. So there's special insurance for ride-sharing insurance. That's what we're trying to achieve for the drivers themselves. And then there's another one that we need for the company.
Competition is always a very good thing, especially for Newfoundlanders. More competition, the better services you have to provide for every citizen in Newfoundland. And so competition is a good thing. There's a lot we can learn from other sources, from our competitors, from the cab companies, and apply to our own services to provide the best service for Newfoundlanders. And at the end of the day, we want to be the best, and we intend to be the best, and competition is wonderful.
How does the app work? So basically, you sign in, you download the app from the App Store, you put in your number, you verify your number, you go in, add your payment method, and then book a ride wherever you want to go, and then the driver will come up right at your doorstep.
What makes your app different from what's already on offer?
So there are limited cab drivers, there are limited cars itself on the road, and in terms of affordability, we are much more affordable in terms of the cab.
What kind of demand do you think is out there?
So the news broke out last week on Monday that we were planning to launch, and within that time and now we have almost 3,000 users signed up just waiting to use our service, and we haven't even had one ride yet. So there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of hunger out there from Newfoundlanders for a ride-share service that would make their lives more convenient and much more safer.
And how about drivers? Where does that stand?
So our drivers needs to have a Class 4 license, and they need to have that insurance and some other documentation, which is code of conduct, registration, inspection itself. We have a few dozen drivers ready to go, and we're just waiting on the insurance for them.
And if everything goes the way you hope it will, when do you hope to have this up and running?
So our initial right now is end of February, and that's what we're hoping.
Well, now to Labrador. Shahajit's health director says Inuit people still face discrimination in healthcare. Mary Pia Benowin was the first Labrador Inuit nurse and spoke about her experiences at the inquiry into the treatment of Inuit children in the child protection system.
There was one time this young baby was brought into emergency with seizures. And he was admitted and then started having seizures again, and they were going to keep him there. And I went to the medical officer of health. I said, if this was your child, that child would be out on the plane in no time. Since it's an Inuit child, you guys are wasting a lot of time. And that boy is still alive, but he had brain damage because of the long wait in Goose Bay at the hospital. And there was one time when one of the psychiatric patients took off, and nobody was going to go and find him. He was on the base in Goose Bay in the middle of the night. There was only 3 of us working that night, plus the security and the doctor on call. And I went out and looked for this guy because he was Inuit, and nobody else would want to look out for him, and just said he'll come back or let him be. We can't force him to come back. But I went and looked for him and brought him back. So when I see stuff not being done right at the hospital while I work there, I try to correct it appropriately and going through the appropriate personnel so that I don't cause too much trouble in there.
And so, since you left, are you able to say whether you think Innu and non-Innu are treated the same at the hospital, or is there a sense among the Innu that they don't get the same treatment?
I know the Innu people don't get proper treatment up at the hospital. I know that. I've seen it many times over the years since I've come to work here in Shesh. And I do see a lot of people going for second opinions to St. John's when they think they're not being treated properly here in Goose Bay. People go to the hospital in Goose Bay on numerous occasions and different times with the same problem over and over again, and it seems as though nothing is being done.
Well, more than 1,700 people have already voted in the advanced polls in Conception Bay East Bell Island. Former Tory leader and MHA David Brazel represented the district for more than a decade. Now, 4 candidates are vying for that job. All were in the CBC studio today for a live debate with the Signal's Adam Walsh. Here's what they've been hearing when out knocking on doors in the district.
Conception Bay East Bell Island is basically almost, you could say, 3 different districts, because you have Bell Island, you have Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, where I am from, and you have a portion of Paradise, which was brought into it when there was a reduction of seats. So there are different issues for each one. To say that there was one specific issue, obviously everybody is talking about cost of living, everybody is talking about health care. But if you look at Paradise, the key there that people are asking about and talking about, the high school, they want a high school, and traffic. And if you spend any time driving over there during rush hour, it is incredible. There's huge growth, but the road is basically, in many respects, still the same. Conception Bay East Bell Island, folks there at the door want to have a healthcare clinic back in the community. So a family care team is something that's being discussed. And on Bell Island, obviously the ferry is key, and healthcare once again. So, you know, while it has been great to reconnect with everybody, the one thing I'm also hearing from people is that Premier Fury lives in the district, I live in the district, and they would like the idea of having both on the government side.
Kim Churchill, doors. What are you hearing as you go door to door?
So, and once again, you know, it is different for the different areas. Bell Island, clearly their number one priority is a shore-based manager for the ferry. Without that position being created, the ferry is a lifeline to Bell Island. So we'll never see any improvements in healthcare. We won't see any improvements in tourism. We won't see any improvements in economic development. So that's the key issue there. With regards to Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, and Paradise, I've been hearing the same echoing sentiments, childcare. It seems like, I can't tell you how many mothers usually I've talked to who've told me they've actually had to quit their jobs because they could not find childcare space for their little one. And in fact, I talked to a doctor in Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, who told me that her clinic has been impacted because the child care space that she has opens later than it used to years ago, and it closes earlier than it used to. So now she has to open her clinic later and close it earlier. And of course, that is impacting patient care.
Tina Neary.
Yeah, I mean, I echo the same thing as both Fred and Kim. We are hearing those things as issues in Paradise. It's the high school. In Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, it's the healthcare clinic. And Bell Island, it's the ferry service. But I think the difference is, and I think what some people are sharing, and where the confusion comes from, is you know, these things were all in order before. Like the high school was already slated in Paradise to operate, and it was canceled in 2016 when the Liberal government came in. And when we're looking at healthcare and our healthcare clinic, I mean, it's fantastic that individuals are, you know, we're all saying that we want it to come back, but the reality is it was taken away in 2018, and you know, now all of a sudden we have to respond and you know, do some damage control. So it's hearing the very same things. You know, talking to teachers. Teachers are really, really strained and fed up with what's happening with the education system. Everything in a circle. It's all something that definitely is making really valid points.
Daryl Hardy.
Thank you. What I'm hearing at the doors and through the messaging that's coming to me, as my 3 colleagues have mentioned, there is a concern that people are not being heard on these issues. Some of the issues are long-term. Some of them go back to a decade or more. In regards to the ferry issue on Bell Island, the shore-based manager is something as marine liaison under the previous PC government we were fighting to have in place. The previous MHA, David Brazel, had me over there, and the plan was put in place. It was a matter of being done. Unfortunately, things happened differently in 2016. A big thing that I'm hearing in Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, and Kim just touched on it as well, outside of the fact that the that the clinic was already there, the public health clinic, and now we have to try to fight to get it back, is childcare. So I reached out to the Federation of Co-ops to see if we could open up or have a conversation about a cooperative style operation where the cost could be shared among the parents and basically be owners of the childcare services in the area, and that's ongoing. The conditions healthcare-wise on Bell Island are very, very difficult. The conversation is around dialysis for the people on Bell Island. The ferry doesn't make it very comfortable. People have to go to St. John's, whether it's by taxi or by ambulance. So we're hoping to get a couple of dialysis seats over there. People need to be heard. They're being heard by all the candidates here, and we have to create a hub. We have to have the spokes of a wheel. All these concerns need to be addressed.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about all the cold weather, especially in Labrador. So how much are these really extremely cold temperatures going to be sticking around for?
Well, it looks like things are going to start to warm up tomorrow afternoon into the minus teens for some parts of the island, minus 20s, and almost the minus 30s for some parts of Labrador. And I'm saying warm up because it's all relative.
Really?
But the rest of the week looks okay. So let's take a little bit of a look at what's in store. As we move through Wednesday evening, we'll see some flurries possibly across Lab West. And it looks like they'll move across central Labrador and sort of south towards the island and then move across the island. And as we get to Thursday, what we'll see across Labrador is some clearing in behind that, and that'll leave behind some sun and clouds. So we see minus 18 here for Lab City and through Nain, and minus 12 for Happy Valley, Goose Bay to Cartwright, a little bit warmer there in the Strait. So that's a touch warmer than what we're experiencing right now through Labrador. But for the island, temperatures are warmer, but that warmth between, say, -1 and 1 degree for the most part on the island does come with some flurries, and it could be a windier day on Thursday for the east coast here in St. John's where we are, and through the Straits and St. Anthony. Temperatures in between Labrador and the island -5, -6, and you could see some flurries there as well. As we move on to Friday, we'll see that clearing in Labrador, and then some more cloud pushing right across the island Friday morning, and then into the evening we'll see some more clearing across Labrador. But it looks like we'll have a mix of sun and cloud right across the province, things warming up a little bit in Labrador for the west and Happy Valley, Goose Bay, -8, -9, still -13 there in Nain. But the temperatures for the island between -2 there in Port aux Basques with some sun and cloud, and -6 in St. Anthony and at Gander, -5 in the east and for the west coast there as well. So Friday, not looking like a bad day, not nearly as cold as what we'll see in the next 24 hours. For St. John's and eastern parts of the province over the next couple of days, some sun tomorrow, but the cool temperatures, some flurries on Thursday, sun and cloud on Friday, some cloud again on Saturday, and a possible chance of flurries Sunday as you clue up your weekend. As we move through the rest of the province, central looking similar. You can see those cold temperatures in store for Wednesday. For the west coast, you've got a few more flurries there for Wednesday, some snow on Thursday and flurries again on Sunday. And in Labrador, it looks like in eastern Labrador, you're going to have an absolutely beautiful week right on in through the weekend, but your temperatures cold, especially in the nighttime with another cold snap, it looks like on Sunday. And for western Labrador, you could see a flurry tomorrow and cold temperatures on Thursday as well, with some sun and cloud into Friday, a few flurries Saturday, and more cold weather there on Sunday, as cold as -38 there on Sunday in the nighttime, your overnight low. So looking like more cold in store later through your weekend. And there we go. We've got a beautiful winter wonderland photo as our weather photo, because we've been talking about snow, and we've been talking about cold, and we've been talking about sun, and we've been talking about cloud. And this one comes to us from Connie Boland. She took this in Lark Harbor while hiking. If you've got photos for us, send them along, nlphotos@cbc.ca. We love to see them.
Oh, just gorgeous. Thank you so much, Connie. And I guess, when you're heading out in this weather, it's just all about dressing for it, you know? Especially when you're out hiking like Connie, just make sure that you have all the layers on and be prepared. All right, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.